right, welcome back to Bookshelf Tour Comic Book Edition. And this edition is all about Alan Moore. Alan Moore, who is probably at this point best known for his Watchmen uh, graphic novel story. There's that light and jolly fellow on the back. That's Alan Moore. Only gets jollier as he goes along. But also a really great comic book writer, someone who's kind of his structural and thematic interests are quite interesting, quite above kind of the level of a lot of kind of punch 'em up comic book heroes, or even kind of the more straight ahead comic memoirists, autobiographical novelists. He's somebody who seems to be interested in kind of dissecting society, ripping it up, showing us exactly how rotten to the core it is. Starting off with in comic books, because it's the dominant genre is the superhero, and just sort of how kind of fascistic, how kind of this rather sick, sad kind of power fantasy that so much of superheroes can be. I mean, if there's a positive kind of aspirational, this is an aspirational god that we could aspire to. There's also the thing of, well, sometimes when you get gods of men, you're talking about kind of a fascist idea of these are the people who will rule over you, the strong men a lot of most times that will rule over you in that kind of chilling way. This is great in that it collects all of the, I think it's 12 issues of the Watchmen together into one thing. Starting off with the murder of the comedian at the beginning, thrown out of a window. This is with Dave Gibbons, the other fellow, looking a little more just like a dude versus the presence that is Alan Moore. It is intercut with a variety of stories from the past and the future. Also, a really odd pirate ship kind of section in the book, which is very much kind of the weird tales. Is it EC Comics? I think it was the adult comics that got suppressed earlier in comic history. So it also contains a lot of that kind of American comic history in it, seen through the eyes of a Brit like Alan Moore. At the end parts, they'll have different little sections of more kind of layering on of information, and it's like, these are reports like the New York State Psychiatric Hospital West Branch, and it's like, it's a history of I think probably Rorschach there and his mental illnesses, his certain sort of psychoses. At least that's how the state would define him. So it's got a lot of interrogations that way. I think I already showed you from Hell my him doing his version of the Jack the Ripper story. Outside of comic books. Another one is V for Vendetta, which I don't know if it says in Good Evening London. It's 9 o'clock, and this is the voice of fate. It is the 5th of the 11th, 1997. The people of London are advised that the Brixton and Streatham areas are quarantine zones as of today. It is suggested that these areas be avoided for reasons of health and safety. Police raided 17 homes in the Brighton area earlier this morning, uncovering what is believed to be a major terrorist ring. 20 people, 8 of them women, are currently in detention, awaiting trial. A frightening and powerful story of the loss of freedom and identity in a totalitarian world. V for Vendetta is a chronicle of a world of despair and oppressive tyranny. So, sort of in the same kind of lines of something like, it's like the comic books 1984, looking at but told through the eyes of a more modern Brit who sees a lot of the tyranny in the world. I think this was written during the Thatcher era, so it's like it was definitely very biting at the time and is still biting now. He also took over on the thing called the Swamp Thing comics, which have gorgeous covers, which is sort of somewhat kind of ecological fable of a man maybe turned into a swamp thing, or a swamp thing that thinks it was at one time a man. Really gorgeously lurid colors. This is Steve Bissett doing the artwork, and is it John Tolbin? I think is the Tolbin. Titania Wood is colorist, and I guess there's a couple of artists, Steve Bissett and John Tolbin. But yeah, so gorgeous covers. Really interestingly told. This is an example of Alan Moore taking something that was kind of a campy kind of creation of, I think it's DC Comics, and saying, okay, I'm going to explode the whole thing. I'm going to change up. I'm going to slightly twist things and use it to tell stories. Kind of how mankind is destroying the world, destroying nature, and Swamp Thing being kind of an avatar of that nature. I've got. He also went on to use going back in kind of going back and finding out of copyright characters such as Alan Quartermain, Dr. Heckle, Mr. Hyde, woman from the vampire thing, Captain Nemo from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and making the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which apparently has been a league far back in history and various things. I think Dorian Gray and definitely the Invisible Man shows up in these books as a way to kind of interrogate sort of the West's kind of empire capitalist past, kind of deconstruct all that sort of stuff, while also telling kind of a rip-roaring thrilling story as these turn of the century or 19th century, late 19th century kind of pulp fiction stories had. This is working with Kevin O'Neill, making some just gorgeous, amazing covers. Oh, and I think at the very beginning is I believe is Edgar Rice Burroughs with Martians, though those are Martians that are far more clothed than there were in the books, which I'm actually reading at the moment. But yes, that looks like a Tars Tarkas type of fellow there. Yeah, so that I have greater appreciation for at the moment because I'm reading those books. But yes, Mina Harker's journal. Yes. So gorgeous stuff with weird, bizarre, kind of like Victoriana kind of illustrations. Oh, there's a picture of Orlando. Maybe that was a past member of the League. I don't know, or past villain. You never know with him. Really just great illustrations, but also just great storytelling from Alan Moore when he is on. He's on. I don't know if I even own the second volume. I felt that seemed to fall off a bridge a little bit for me. I don't know if I have that there. I can't remember. I think we got into Island of Dr. Moreau. I think I actually did enjoy that part. The next thing we have, the next big work, which I think left a lot of people behind. You don't hear this one talked about nearly as much, though it has gorgeous artwork, is Promethea, which is much more, I think Alan Moore considers himself not a magician, a wizard. I don't know. He's somebody who's very much into symbology and how that can affect things. But he gets into that with Promethea, which is is, I don't think I can even properly sum it up. University student Sophie Bangs lives in present-day New York City, similar to our own, but one dominated by science. In its multi-level construction glows with neon, glimmers with talking billboards, and gleams in the headlights of floating cars. But what interests Sophie isn't science. It's myth, specifically the recurring myths and stories of the mystic warrior woman named Promethea, whose origins seem to emerge from the dim memories of 5th century Egypt, when a young girl fleeing from her father's murderer slips somehow into the realm of ancient gods, the Immateria. Researching a fictional trail through centuries, Sophie calls on the widow